My name's Sam Boone and I work for Signet as part of AHDB, and I'm here to talk about the latest developments within the RamCompare project. Within the presentation, I'm going to explain our progeny test, RamCompare, going to talk about the latest research in recent months and talk about the potential impact on the terminal sire evaluation. There's going to be a separate presentation that will actually talk about this year's results. Over the last 40 years, what we've been trying to do is to predict the genetic merit of rams for growth and carcass traits. And to do this, we started off by collecting lamb growth rates. That was the only thing that we could do in the early days. And levy-funded research has enabled us to develop ultrasound scanning services and the use of CT to further our advancement in understanding the carcass composition. Over the last 10 years or so, we've been able to add abattoir data into our evaluations, getting much closer to having a better predictor of total carcass value. We started off by just doing that within flock because that's all computers were able to do in the early days. We progressed to be able to make comparisons between flocks thanks to the work of the sire reference scheme, and we now have a national terminal sire evaluation that works across all flocks and breeds. We do this using mathematical equations to predict the proportion of genes being passed from one generation to the next and the impact of major genes. But in the future, we'll also be looking to incorporate an animal's actual genetic makeup. So that's the world of genomics and genotyping, and that's definitely a presentation for another day. But this work will really underpin future genomic developments. So the RamCompare project is a progeny test. We select a range of rams of a number of different breeds, both AI and natural service. They head out onto commercial farms, and then data is collected from lambing time through to slaughter. So we produce a range of estimated breeding values from this information. The information in terms of birth weight, lambing ease, 8-week weight, and then scan weight, muscle depth, and fat depth is the sort of information that we already collect on pedigree performance recorded farms across the country. The additionality created through this project is the ability to collect days to slaughter, carcass weight, conformation, and fat class. And none of this would be possible without support from levy board funding, from collaborators within industry, and those supporting the project, helping us to actually get hold of the data and get it easily into our evaluations. We're very grateful for the many people that actually support this project. And that starts with the farmers. So we've got farmers across England, Scotland, and Wales with large commercial flocks that are happy to have us out on farm, providing them with rams, and then working really hard throughout the year to send data back that we can use within our evaluations. So we're very grateful for their help and support throughout the year. In terms of records collected to date, we've actually got the best part of 55,000 abattoir records now held on the database, and a large chunk of which come through the RamCompare project. This is the total amount on the table in front of you. Most of the composite, clin, and mule ewe flocks are within RamCompare, but you can see that we've also got nearly 7,000 Poll Dorset records that have been sent to us for use in analysis, and nearly 6,000 abattoir records from a wool shedding flock where that data has become available. So as part of RamCompare, we've also encouraged another 20 farms to send abattoir data for use within our evaluations. So we're really getting up ahead of steam. And this is just a quick chart showing the number of records by year of slaughter. So you can see that we had very few records prior to 2016. You can see the significant impact that RamCompare has in the blue, but you can also see that actually having this data available has encouraged others to send us data, either historic or current records as they come through from their abattoirs. And certainly more farmers are getting feedback from abattoirs so we can make greater use of this data. So the aims of our national progeny test were to produce new breeding values for carcass traits, to compare the performance of recorded rams under commercial conditions, supporting our national terminal sire evaluation, and to demonstrate the commercial value of recorded rams. And we've more than achieved those objectives. It's been very successful in that respect. The areas where we're now working on are to widen the impact of the information derived from the project and to encourage ram breeders to place greater value on the new breeding values that are produced. And over time, I can see these breeding values starting to replace some of the proxy traits like muscle depth and fat depth as the primary breeding values of interest to commercial ram buyers. And we've made some big steps in achieving this. So we've moved from the research phase of the project, where we had two separate standalone evaluations, the National Terminal Sire evaluation and then RamCompare sitting separately from that, to moving them into a single National Terminal Sire evaluation. So results are now available for carcass traits every month. The data is out in the industry and we've got some early indicators of where we can find the best rams within a breed for carcass traits. So that's a big step forward that we launched last year. But in doing so, we haven't fitted correlations between the on-farm traits and the abattoir traits at this stage. The abattoir traits have been very much standalone within that evaluation. If you want to see the results very quickly, you can flick into the news area on the Signet website, and we've produced some very quick reports there within breed showing you some of our trait leaders. So the information is out there, it's easily available to ram breeders and to commercial ram buyers. And here's just an example. We've got a Charolais ram here, and you can see along the bottom, underneath that big list of traits of things that the breeders are measuring on farm, is information coming through on the all-important abattoir traits and the sub-index at the bottom, lamb value, which pulls together days to slaughter, carcass weight, conformation, etc. So that data is freely available and in the public domain if you've got the identity of a ram of interest. The challenge is that we only have a limited number of rams that have gone through the test, and we'd really like to use the information collected by pedigree breeders to predict traits like days to slaughter and carcass weight now that we know the relationship between the two. And we do know that relationship. There's actually quite a strong relationship between days to slaughter and scan weight. Although it's red here in negative, that's actually a good thing. So as you choose animals with higher genetic merit for scan weight, then they will have lower values for days to slaughter. The lambs will finish sooner, will finish more quickly. We know there's a good relationship between ultrasound fat depth and fat class in the abattoir, and so theoretically we can build that in. And we know there's a good relationship between muscle depth and carcass conformation. There's a bit of a relationship between scan weight and carcass weight, and other than that, most of the relationships are relatively small. But in updating our model with these relationships, we can do a better job of predicting both aspects of performance. So we've modeled this and we've actually already produced a couple of runs. And what does it show us? First of all, it shows a big increase in the accuracy values for predicting carcass traits across the wider population. So rather than just having a subset of animals with highly accurate carcass traits, we've now got more accurate carcass traits for those animals that simply have information on, let's say, scan weight or muscle depth. The ranking of sheep without carcass data wasn't massively affected for the other traits. The ranking for sheep with carcass data did change because you'd got other information feeding in, but it was consistent with the results we were producing before and producing a better predictor. And more importantly, it's bringing our terminal sire index and the lamb value, which is our sub-index based on abattoir traits, much closer together. And that's important in terms of trying to determine where we go next. So here's just a very quick example. The completed lines along the bottom are the scanway EBVs for Charolais. And you can see that the orange line is the trends in the past and the blue is the new trends that we'd produced with the correlation fitted. You can see that the ranking of animals hasn't changed. The trend is very similar, but some of the variation has been reduced a bit. So values have been pulled in a little bit through the addition of information on days to slaughter. But what you can also see is that we can now produce trends for days to slaughter, which is arguably much more meaningful for commercial producers. And you can see in particular in the last 10 years, some important reductions in days to slaughter being achieved across the Charolais breed. And this is all Charolais because we get data from both recorded flocks and birth notifications from the society. So this is genuinely a piece of information at breed level. I think I would argue that the recorded flocks are making much faster progress than the breed on average because of the data they have available to them. I happen to have shown Charolais. I can show you exactly the same thing with the big breeds that we work with, Suffolks, Hamps, Meatlinks, etc. So we've done step one. We've fitted these relationships. Step two is more complicated because we know that there are relationships between the CT traits. So we use computer tomography, CT, to measure the total amount of muscle in the carcass, the total amount of fat in the carcass, and jigget shape. And we certainly know which traits we expect those to influence in the abattoir, and indeed we can already see that. So what we want to do is formalize those relationships within our model and then release updated breeding values, hopefully in 2025, that will reflect that. So that work is still ongoing. It's slightly complicated by the fact that we rarely have big populations of animals with both measurements. They either have CT data and are used for breeding, or they go off for slaughter but haven't been CT scanned in advance. So that makes the maths a little bit more complicated. We've got the top team at SIUC working on that at the moment. So how can I get involved? Well, we're always looking for rams, whether that's rams for natural service or whether that's semen that we can use on tests. So that's one way that you can get it involved. Nominations typically open in sort of March, April, May time ahead of the mating season. And we're always looking for farms to get involved as well. So that's either being a RamCompare farm yourself or looking to supply abattoir data into the analysis. You can read more about the work that we do. There's a new publication produced last year, Selecting Recorded Rams for Carcass Traits, that explained the last big development, an update to our analysis. And there's quite a lot of information on the AHDB knowledge library about performance recording and using performance recorded rams. We're out and about this year. We've got two fantastic events lined up. One run through AHDB, my AHDB colleagues, one run through HCC across in Wales, and they're on the 24th of May and the 25th of June, respectively. We'll also be at the sheep event, so please do come onto the AHDB stand and come and chat to me then. So to summarise, we've got a range and an increasing range of breeding values that are available to help with ram selection, whether those are traits that influence the ease of birth of the lamb being born, growth rate, maternal aspects of the ewe, which we haven't really touched on today because we've been talking about terminal sires, or the range of carcass traits that are available. And really one of my jobs is to pull all this information together now that we've got lots of options, whether it's ultrasound or CT or abattoir data, to produce some real simple predictors for commercial farmers to use. But there's some really great data out there on carcass traits. And then secondly is just to say that I think things are going to change in 2025. We've got a better way of evaluating carcass traits if we can fit these genetic relationships. It brings our indexes closer together. It's vital for any future work on environmental indexes. Days to slaughter has a really big impact on an animal's carbon footprint, particularly when we talk about from a terminal sire perspective. And also this work will be really important for anything we do on genomics. So actually using DNA within our evaluations, what you do need to have to start with is a really good genetic prediction. And that's what this is giving us. So the impact of these changes, we'll see a big increase in accuracy of the carcass trait predictions, and there'll inevitably be some re-ranking, but it's not going to turn figures on their heads. We might see a bit of reduction in EBVs for some of our higher figured animals as a result of these changes. So any questions, please do chat to Bridget, who's the project coordinator and actually does all the hard work on RamCompare, myself, or my colleague Laura, who works in the Signet office. Thank you.